Hello everyone and welcome back to Coach Craig Sports. Today is Tuesday, so this is going to be the waiver wire episode for week 3. So hopefully you guys are off to very good starts. Hopefully you're all 2-0 or at the very least 1-1 with some upside there. But if you're looking for some guys on waivers this week, probably not the best week overall, to be honest. I have, I believe, 10 names on here plus a couple defenses. And it's not the prettiest in the world, I'll be honest with you. Probably a week that you're not going to want to spend too much of your fab budget or waste a high waiver priority in general. But, with that being said, we're going to get into it. We'll start off with the quarterback position, and the first one is Derek Carr. 28 out of 37, 382 yards, 2 touchdowns, 0 interceptions, 9 yards rushing. That ended up being 28.18 points in week 2, and Derek Carr's been over 28 points both weeks so far this season for 6 point per passing touchdown leagues. He is rostered in 22% of ESPN leagues, 27% of Yahoo leagues. Goes against the Dolphins this week. Probably shouldn't be the best matchup in the world, but Tua might not play. Maybe this Dolphins offense can't move very well against the Raiders defense. And if Josh Jacobs does not play again, we haven't seen much of a run game out of this Raiders team, and Derek Carr has been showing that he is capable, fully capable of slinging that ball. So he seems like a pretty good pickup for this week and maybe potentially for the future. Probably a guy that you want to spend like up to 3% of your fab budget on. Like I said, not too many guys you're going to want to spend up on this week. Next up, we got Teddy Bridgewater. Pretty much just a streaming quarterback option. He's played very well so far. He's had over 24 points both games to start the season. But, he hasn't played the greatest teams in the world either. But last week he was 26 out of 34, 328 yards, 2 touchdowns, 0 interceptions, 1 whole yard rushing, 25.22 points in week 2. Rostered in 20% of ESPN leagues, 18% of Yahoo leagues. So pretty good chance that he's still out there. Goes against a very good matchup against the Jets in week 3. And he's thrown the ball over 30 times in both games despite having pretty good matchups. So pretty good sign that he's going to be throwing to some of these playmakers in Cortland Sutton, Noah Fant, Tim Patrick, Alberto. Quite a few options there. So he's probably a guy that's worth streaming this week. Probably won't spend any more than 2% of my fab budget on him, though. Then last but not least at the quarterback position, we got Daniel Jones, who's actually played pretty solid so far this year despite playing against 2 pretty good defense, or what we thought should be pretty good defenses headed into the season. Last week, he was 22 out of 32, 249 yards, 1 touchdown, 0 interceptions, had 95 yards rushing, as we talked about in the top 5 performer video yesterday, because he was a top 5 quarterback last week and had a touchdown as well. 31.46 points in week 2. He's only rostered in 13% of ESPN leagues, 20% of Yahoo leagues, so pretty good chance that he's still out there. Goes against the Atlanta Falcons, which is like the juiciest matchup pretty much anyone could ask for in week 3, so he's a great streaming option. Maybe a guy I'd probably be willing to spend up to 3% of my fab budget on, just because it's a great matchup this week. And if he keeps rolling kind of the way he's been doing, this could maybe be that third-year breakout for Daniel Jones. Like I mentioned before, the offensive line looked a lot better in week 2. So maybe if everything really starts to click, Daniel Jones could be a guy that's a streamable quarterback week to week. But with that being said, we'll get moved over to the running backs. And the running back position this week is dry, like super dry. I will say that some leagues Tony Pollard is available. On ESPN it was closer to, I believe, 38%, and then on Yahoo he was over like 54%, so he didn't make the cut. I do think Tony Pollard's worth rostering, worth having as high-end backup, but I don't think he's anybody you want to start in week 3, let's put it that way. I will say, as far as quarterbacks go too, in ESPN leagues Justin Fields is 48% rostered. Yahoo, he's about 52%. So if you're out there, need a quarterback, maybe Justin Fields is somebody that's of interest to you, especially if Andy Dalton doesn't play. But the Bears have already come out and said if Andy Dalton's healthy, he's still going to be the starter. And then last but not least with that too is Kirk Cousins. He is pretty available on ESPN leagues, but he was rostered in 66% of Yahoo leagues. He has places against Seattle this week, so just another name to throw out there. But in terms of running backs, we got Cordarrelle Patterson, who had a great week too. He only played 33% of snaps, has had 7 carries in back-to-back weeks. In week 2, it was only 7 carries for 11 yards. He ended up with the touchdown, which helped out there. 6 targets, 5 receptions, 58 yards, 1 touchdown as well. 39.9 fantasy points in week 2. And, he finishes a top 5 running back. If you're in a league where he could still play wide receiver, he still was solid there as well. Rostered in about 15% of leagues on both Yahoo and ESPN. goes against the New York Giants in week 3. Not the best matchup in the world, but not the worst matchup either. But I have a hard time spending up for a guy like Cordarrelle Patterson, where we know he's going to have this limited role, as we see with the 33% of snaps. Somebody in your league's probably going to overpay for him, go point chasing. He's probably a guy I spend like 2% of my fab budget on, if that. Keep on the end of my bench, see if he turns into something more. You guys know I've already talked about Wayne Gallman on the channel the last couple of weeks in waivers. He's been inactive the first 2 weeks, but I assume it's just him getting used to the playbook. So he's going to he's going to be a factor in this backfield at some point in time too. So not somebody I'm particularly chasing, Cordarrelle Patterson, but somebody that we do have to mention. Then the only other running back that made the list this week is Trenton Cannon, and he's on the 49ers now. I probably have to say that because he did start the year with the Ravens. He was with Carolina before that, so he's been bouncing around quite a bit this year already. Week 2, he played 1% of snaps. He played one whole snap. He had 1 carry for -1 yards, minus 0.1 points in week 2. So you guys might be asking, why are we talking about Trenton Cannon? Well, he is the only healthy San Francisco 49ers running back at this point in time. Elijah Mitchell dealing with shoulder injury, questionable for week 3. Trey Sermon is dealing with a concussion. He's probably not going to play week 3. And then JaMychal Hasty has a high ankle sprain. He is definitely not playing in week 3. So best case scenario for Trenton Cannon. All 3 of these guys are out. Could be the lead guy in the backfield. They do have Kerryon Johnson in the practice squad too, so maybe he's somebody that you take a look at. But those guys probably end up splitting snaps. Kerryon Johnson has a pretty rough injury history of his own as well. Trent Cannon, the Panthers are actually trying to convert him to wide receiver. So maybe you get some catches out of the backfield too. So if you're in a PPR league, could help you out there. Rostered in 1% of both ESPN and Yahoo leagues. Goes against Green Bay in week 3. Could be a pretty good matchup there as well. Not a guy I'm rushing out to play, but if you are beat up at running back, if you need somebody out there, definitely a guy worth picking up that could pay off this week and maybe for a couple more weeks, but probably not long term. So probably a guy that you only want to spend 2 or 3% of your fab budget on. But like I said, running back position this week, it's pretty scary. And overall for waivers, there's not a lot of guys you really want to spend up on. But we'll move over to wide receiver, and this is probably the guy to spend up on if you're going to spend up on one. If you guys have been watching my channel long enough, you should already have Rondale Moore on your roster, so we shouldn't have to even have this discussion, but we're going to go over it anyways. Played 46% of snaps in week 2, so that was 17% more than week 1. Had 8 targets, 7 receptions, 114 yards, and 1 touchdown. 24.4 points in week 2. Rostered in 25% of ESPN leagues, 35% of Yahoo leagues. It goes against Jacksonville in week 3, which is a juicy matchup. I'd expect Rondale Moore to play more snaps again this week. They keep working him in. And heck, we haven't even seen him carry the ball yet. And this is a dynamic playmaker. As a rookie guy that's pretty much incredible in terms of every measure athletically. We've seen him put production on the field. He's getting a bunch of targets despite playing not as many snaps as some of these other wide receivers. So when you have somebody like that, it's not realistic most of the time, but we've seen the trend 2 weeks in a row, and if it keeps on continuing, Rondale Moore is going to be a potential league winner. So this is a guy in Rondale Moore I'm willing to spend like 10 to 15% of my fab budget on because he offers that high-end upside, especially in PPR formats, and just with his overall athleticism, he can turn any play into a big play. Then we're going to move over to Tim Patrick, and somebody I mentioned last week as well. Played 74% of snaps in week 2. 4 targets, 3 receptions, 37 yards, 1 touchdown. Not the best stat line in the world. The touchdown did kind of bail him out there. 12.7 points in week 2. You're looking at a wide receiver 3 kind of boom bust based on touchdowns. But he's only rostered 19% of ESPN leagues, 22% of Yahoo leagues. Goes against the Jets in week 3, which is going to be another juicy matchup for him overall. So Tim Patrick's essentially paid off 2 weeks in a row. I wouldn't bet against it in a third week going against this Jets team. So definitely somebody that you should have on your roster, on your bench. Good bye week filler, and offers a little bit of touchdown upside as well. So Tim Patrick's somebody I'm definitely interested in. Once again, I'd spend like up to 3 to 5% of my fab budget on Tim Patrick if I needed to. Then we're talking about KJ Osborn again. So week 1, he played 81% of snaps. Week 2 is 59% of snaps. Like I said in week 1, I did not expect the 81% of snaps to stick. I said it's probably going to be somewhere closer to 55 to 65 in most games, which it ended up being. He had 6 targets, 5 receptions, 91 yards, and a touchdown. Another solid day for him overall. So he actually ended up with 20.1 points. I did forget to change the total from week 1, but in week 2 it was 20.1. So you see there double-digit points out of a guy that's not rostered anywhere once again. Got a little bit of traction last week. ESPN up to 2%, Yahoo up to 4%, but that's still nothing. He's still out there in a wide majority of leagues. Goes against Seattle in week 3. Seattle's defensive backs are not the best by any means. And it's probably going to be a shootout, so he's going to be on the field more often than not. And if you keep seeing 6 targets a game or more, that's definitely going to offer some upside with KJ Osborn. Not a guy that I don't think you have to spend too much, probably 2 to 3% of your fab budget on. Maybe somebody in your league gets crazy on him just because he's had back-to-back weeks now. But still, at the end of the day, most people don't even know who KJ Osborn was going into this season. We have Quintez Cephus at wide receiver as well. Played 89% of snaps last night on Monday Night Football. 7 targets in back-to-back weeks, 4 receptions last night. And then he had 63 yards and a touchdown. He's actually scored a touchdown both weeks so far this season. 16.3 points in week 2. Pretty much not rostered anywhere. 1% of ESPN leagues, 2% of Yahoo leagues. Goes against Baltimore in week 3, who's sneakily been pretty bad against wide receivers because their cornerback unit's so banged up. So Quintez Cephus could offer a little bit of potential there. Is he somebody I'm probably going to roll out week 3? Probably not, but somebody to add on the back end of your bench, 1 to 2% of your fab budget. Kind of see if these trends keep on continuing for him. Then last but not least, at the wide receiver position, we got Mr. Freddie Swain, who is one of my favorite DFS dart throws in week 2. He played 76% of snaps in week 2. It is important to note that Dwayne Eskridge was out in this game with a concussion. Honestly, at this point in time, I think Freddie Swain's probably better than Eskridge. I don't know if the Seattle Seahawks are going to admit that right away since they did spend pretty decent draft capital on Eskridge. But we've seen Pete Carroll go with lower draft capital guys over higher draft capital guys before in the past, so it wouldn't surprise me if Freddie Swain kind of keeps up that third wide receiver role. 5 targets, 5 receptions, 95 yards, and a touchdown. Ends up being exactly 21 points in week 2. And Freddie Swain is not rostered pretty much anywhere. He is available in like 99.99% of leagues, so there's a good chance that he's out there. Talking about that Minnesota matchup like I did with KJ Osborn, potential shootout, so Freddie Swain could be on the field more often, especially in 3 wide receiver sets. With that being said, Freddie Swain, probably you only have to spend like 1% of your fab budget. I doubt anybody else is going to bid on him. Most people still don't even know who he is. But a potential, dart throw on the back end of your bench. See if he turns into something. If he keeps up the snap rate, keeps up that third wide receiver role, he's going to have some pretty solid games. Then I'll just say this first of all, before we get into the defenses. There is no tight ends that I pretty much want to pick up this week. You could look at Austin Hooper, but he bounced over 50% recently on ESPN. Yahoo, I think he's still below 50%. They do not have Jarvis Landry this week, but Odell Beckham Jr. is probably going to be back. So there's 3 tight ends there too. They use all of them. So it's kind of like you just kind of try out and see what's there. If you guys are interested in tight ends, kind of just let me know who's available in your league, and I'll tell you kind of what you should bid if I would pick up the tight end for the week or anything like that, because sometimes there's going to be some variance league to league, but especially with how volatile the tight end position is this year, I think a lot of teams are trying to hold on to 2 tight ends and just kind of pivot back and forth unless they have a lead option. So we get over to the defenses, and we're going to start off with the Carolina Panthers, and this one kind of hurts my soul as a Texans fan, but the Panthers are rostered in 17% of ESPN leagues, 22% of Yahoo leagues. Like I already alluded to, they go against the Texans on Thursday Night Football. Unlikely Tyrod Taylor plays, which means rookie quarterback out of Stanford, Davis Mills, is going to be the starter. I'm going to cry my eyes out probably because Davis Mills should not be starting an NFL football game at this point in time and potentially ever, but that's a whole nother story. So it could be a very good day for the Panthers defense. They do get A.J. Bouye back from his suspension, former Texan as well, so there's a little bit of a revenge game there for them. Their defense looked pretty good last week against the Saints, so they are one of the top streaming options this week. Another good option that I do like is the New York Giants, rostered in 12% of ESPN leagues, 7% of Yahoo leagues. Go against the Falcons, who've had a hard time on offense this season. Matt Ryan's been kind of turnover prone. Matt Ryan's regression's kind of been popping up like I already predicted, so I think the Giants have a good chance in this game, especially if they're able to get pressure on Matt Ryan overall and stop the run. And then last but not least, we got the Arizona Cardinals. They were just over 50% on Yahoo, so I kept them on here. 51%, 40% on ESPN. It's a 50-50 chance that they're still out there in most leagues, but goes against Jacksonville in week 3. A very solid matchup, one of the best you can ask for. Trevor Lawrence has really had a rough go of it in his first 2 weeks in the NFL. But with that being said, that's pretty much all I have for waivers for today. Like I said, it's a pretty short episode. Not a lot of attractive guys out there. With these streaming defenses, I wouldn't recommend spending more than like 3% of your fab budget on, because most of these defenses you're not going to hold on to for a long time. So it's just a weekly play there. But like I said, there's really not a whole lot out there this week. Hopefully next week's a little bit better. But if you need some plug-and-play pieces, these are definitely some options to consider. Some guys to stick on the end of your bench. Hopefully that's all you have to do with some of these guys. And then hopefully some of these guys will prosper as well. But with that being said, if you guys have any questions at all, please feel free to ask me, especially regarding waivers. And I will do my very, very best to help you. Just let me know the context of your league. Let me know who's kind of available. And I'll give you kind of recommendations to what I would spend for fab budget, or if I would use a waiver priority on a certain player. But with that being said, if you guys are new to my channel, please consider subscribing. Definitely would appreciate it. It helps to build the community that we're trying to build here at Coach Craig Sports, and that's truly one that's for you, the viewers. Helping you guys with your fantasy football leagues, helping you with DFS, whether it's NBA or NFL, talking all the different NFL news. There's been a lot of it, especially on the injury notes, so maybe we can make a whole separate video about that. Maybe I'll get a chance to do that tomorrow. Definitely going to be a lot of injury implications if I do not do that. It'll definitely be kind of tied into the start and sits for this week on Saturday as well. But with that being said, if you're a new or current subscriber is yet to do so, also hit that notification bell down below. It's going to let you know every single time I post up a new video. Tomorrow will be Wednesday, so that will be the start sit video for the Thursday night football matchup between the Houston Texans and the Carolina Panthers. Should be a pretty fun one to talk about, but with that being said, that's all I have for today's video. Hopefully you all enjoyed. And then last but not least, special shout out to each and every one of you watching today's video. I truly do appreciate you taking the time out of your day to watch this video. It definitely means a lot to me, and I hope each and every one of you has a great rest of your day.